Hello. Now we're going to be looking at the European colonies in America. And we start by looking at Juan Ponce de Leon, who claimed Florida for Spain. Hernan Cortez conquered the Aztec Empire. Hernando De Soto discovered the Mississippi River. Francisco Vasquez de Coronado and his men explored much of the southern United States, and they were the first to see the Grand Canyon. Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo sailed north from Mexico and sailed into San Diego and Monterey. While the Spanish conquistadors were exploring the Americas, Spain began to set up colonies in the Americas. They set up several viceroyalties, or provinces ruled by a viceroy, a direct representative of the monarch. The Spanish also employed the encomienda system, where landowners controlled the people in a certain area. Spanish missions. Spain also built a large number of missions in the Americas, especially in Mexico and along the California coast. Led by Fray Junipero Serra, missionaries established more than 20 missions along the California coast. England and Spain go to war. England, France, and the Netherlands began to explore the Americas heavily as well. Under Queen Elizabeth I, with religion becoming an issue between England and Spain, the two countries went to war. The English Navy defeated the Spanish Armada. Afterwards, England could establish its own colonies in the Americas. Under King James I, the London Company and the Plymouth Company, both joint stock companies, split North America as they began to build colonies for the profit that they would bring back to investors back home in England. Another one of the famous colonies developed at this time was the colony of Roanoke, which has kind of become known as the Lost Colony of Roanoke. In 1584, a group sent by Sir Walter Raleigh founded the colony of Roanoke along the Atlantic coastline in an area, or named this area, Virginia. The leader of the colony returned to England, and when he returned in 1590, the village was empty. Many theories have surfaced, but nobody knows what became of the lost colony of Roanoke. Of course, there are many possibilities. They could have been killed by Native Americans. They could have died of disease. They could have possibly married into the Native American populations and assimilated. Nobody's exactly certain on what happened to them, and no clear, hard-cut evidence has surfaced to really prove what became of this lost colony. All we know is that they were there and then they weren't. No remains were ever found that could really prove conclusively what had happened to this lost colony. Another one of the major colonies in this area was Jamestown, and this was the first colony to survive in the Americas. It was founded in 1607. John Smith tried to use military-style discipline with the colonists. John Rolfe learned the proper way to cure tobacco from his wife, a Powhatan woman named Pocahontas. And the relationship between the colonist and the Powhatan Confederacy was often rocky, but nonetheless, the fact that Pocahontas did show her husband, John Rolfe, how to properly cure tobacco played a vital role in the survival of this colony at Jamestown. The Virginia Company. During the 15 years of its existence, the colony faced numerous hardships, but it continued to grow. Key events in their history included the formation of the House of Burgesses in 1619, which was really the first legislature in the Americas and the first attempt at self-government. They also were responsible for the use of indentured servants, which is where people who agree to work for a specified time in exchange for passage to America. By the late 1600s, they began to participate in the slave trade, using enslaved Africans for slave labor. the Northern Colonies. After the Reformation, the Puritans wished to purify the church because they thought the Reformation had not gone far enough. Some thought that total separation from the established church was appropriate, and they were known as separatists. One group of separatists, known as the Pilgrims, left England on the Mayflower and founded the Plymouth colony. They signed the Mayflower Compact, a contract agreeing to establish laws, which was one of the first attempts at self-government in the colonies. The Massachusetts Bay Colony. One group of Puritans founded the Massachusetts Bay Company in New England. Their main goal was to make a profit, but some of them sought a religious haven. Their leader, John Winthrop, thought that they should be a model for others. The colony grew quickly and spurred the Great Migration between 1620 and 1643, when over 16,000 English came to settle in New England. Led by Thomas Hooker, a group of settlers who wanted a more democratic government settled along the Connecticut River and wrote a constitution known as the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson, who had been banished from Massachusetts, established a colony in Rhode Island, believing in the separation of church and state. New Hampshire was founded by Anne Hutchinson's brother-in-law in 1638. King Charles I owed money and favors to people, so he granted them with colonies in the middle and southern regions. The English took New Netherland from the Dutch after a brief struggle. Charles awarded it to his brother James, the Duke of York, and they renamed it New York. Later, James gave a large tract of land south of the Hudson River to two proprietors, which became New Jersey. Charles gave charters to 8 men in the Carolinas. North and South Carolina developed very differently, which led to tensions between the two. In 1729, the king divided them into 2 royal colonies. Georgia was established to be a buffer between the other colonies and Spanish-controlled Florida. Charles granted a charter to William Penn, a Quaker. The Quakers believed in personal communication with God, and thus no set worship services were necessary. Penn set out to create a haven for Quakers in 1682. He recognized Native American land rights and made an agreement with the Delaware Indians, which eventually led to a separate colony of Delaware, Maryland. After the Church of England became the official Church of England, Catholics in England sought religious toleration. George Calvert, the first Lord Baltimore, founded the colony of Maryland in 1634 as a haven for English Catholics. The colony was also a source of personal wealth for Lord Baltimore.